and welcome to our third annual Justice Lecture titled Taking Back Our Stuff, Faith and Social Action. My name is Ken Miles, and it's an honor to be a part of DLE and the leadership team at DLE. We're welcoming everyone from far and wide to today's conversation, as we are in conversation with Senator Jabari Brisport. And Jabari is a longtime friend, someone that I've seen in the community, showing up in all the ways for the community, back since, over a decade plus of advocacy. He currently represents New York's 25th State Senate District. For those that may not know Brooklyn as well, that includes Fort Greene, Boerum Hill, Red Hook, Bed-Stuy, Sunset Park, Gowanus, and Park Slope. And so we are honored to be in conversation, to talk about community, to talk about action, to talk about what needs to happen to sustain change in the communities that we care so much about, both in Brooklyn and across New York City. And so it's an honor to introduce the senator, as well as Pastors Andrew and Pastor Gabby from Double Love, to have leaders in conversation to talk about what's needed now, where we're headed, where we've been, and what the future is for the communities that we all care about and all are inspiring to move to action and to continue the transformation that's so urgently needed. So with that being said, would love to turn it over for the conversation. Thank you for joining us. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and welcome on behalf of Double Love Experience.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ken. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our Justice Lecture. We are just thrilled. We're just thrilled to begin this conversation together. So I'm going to ask everyone a favor, if you would. If you're watching us right now, please be sure to go ahead and share this stream. We want to make sure that people, as they are going throughout their Saturday morning, can get involved and get active in this conversation. But I believe we are ready to go. Pastor Andrew, can you kick us off?
Yeah, super excited for this conversation and the Q&A. I think it's going to be a really great time. And again, Senator Brisport, I really appreciate you joining us. Let's maybe get into it this way. Would love if you could kick us off by talking a bit about what you see as the role of values, spirituality, norms in public life, the kind of why that undergirds, for instance, the push for deeply affordable housing, or the push for making sure children have the resources, the supports, the opportunities they need to thrive. What's the why and the role of values that kind of undergirds how you look at public life?
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Okay. Sorry, I had
we had a little glitch. So, but I think we can hear you better now.
Okay, perfect. Good. I was worried for a second. So again, I was just saying thank you for having me. This is really exciting. And I just want to start by saying we are fighting an uphill battle in a mentality of America that's like an I got mine mentality, right? We live under a capitalist society, and under capitalists, it's like I got mine. Let me figure out my own thing, and let me just make sure I'm secure. And if you don't have it, that's your problem. That's a very prevailing notion throughout our society. And spirituality, any faith people practice, it asks you to connect to something bigger than yourself, and asks you to see the humanity in others, and recognize that if others are hurting or if others are suffering, that is your suffering too. That your pain is my pain as well. And it is through that lens that we start to realize that when people are unhoused, when they do not have a roof over their head or a place they can call home, that's not their problem. That is our problem. When there is unemployment and people can't find a job when they want a job, that is not just their problem. That is all of our problems. We're all connected. And you apply that to fair education, to healthcare, and then the thing that we really have to admit is going to affect us all, which is climate change. You know, these are all interconnected problems that affect us all. And it requires a lens that says that, you know, we actually don't live like discrete lives separate from each other, that we actually are connected, and we can't break those bonds.
Yeah, love that. There's a popular quote from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which is only quoted for the kind of punchline at the end. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But a few sentences before that, he talks about how we're caught up in an inescapable garment of mutuality that what affects any of us directly affects all of us indirectly, which really is kind of theme of being interconnected. And I really appreciate you kind of pushing back against the notion that challenges around housing or employment are solely individual challenges rather than our common collective opportunities to step in and to address whatever's happening. Want to pivot here. One of the things that we say every Sunday at Double Love is about building an equitable economy for all of God's creation. And one, I think, deeply aligned project with that. So this is a bit of a popular education moment, is moving towards something that kind of reflects the spirit and the values of a kind of democratic socialist project. And so I'm wondering if you can, in plain everyday terms, you know, just shooting the breeze on the corner in the barbershop, what have you, what is, from a policy perspective, democratic socialism? How would you explain it, Senator Brisport?
Yeah, in plain language, you can think of socialism at large. There's many types of socialisms, right? You can think of a socialism at large as saying people before profit. You know, if capitalism is about capital, you know, and the money, then socialism is about the social aspect. It's about society. So, you know, people over profit. So it's taking the profit motive out of things that are our basic needs, right? Taking the profit motive out of medicine, right? And healthcare, taking the profit motive out of education, out of housing, out of energy, the things that we need to survive and thrive, run 100% for the people and not to enrich certain people. And then when you add democratic socialism, that's saying that we all have to have a say in this. So we don't just take the profit out, we also make sure that there's deep democracy and deep participation in these systems, that we will all have a say in running, you know, this energy sector that's run for us, not profit, this healthcare sector, the education sector, and all of those. And it's about extending it not just to, you know, the things we need, but also our workplaces as well. So when we talk about the labor movement and strong unions, it's saying that, you know, rather than having, you know, the dynamic now, you know, boss, you know, worker, it's about having a, you know, a strong dynamic where, you know, the workers are owning the fruits of their labor.
That's super helpful at a kind of a narrative level, a kind of story of how politics and economy might work. I'm wondering if you could, on an everyday issue, let's take children. I know your advocacy has been distinguished by really championing the needs and the lived experiences of children, making sure all children born in the Empire State can thrive. What does it mean to kind of adopt that sort of perspective, or just generally how you think about what it means to, in the language of the great Marian Wright Edelman, to be a defender of children?
Yeah, you know, one thing we are working on right now is universal childcare and guaranteeing every single parent high quality childcare for their child, and also understand that childcare has come a long way from quote unquote babysitting and, you know, having your kid in front of the TV with cartoons and drinking some apple juice. Like, it actually is early childhood education now. You know, these are you know, centers or home-based providers that are teaching our kids social emotional skills, their ABCs, things that will prep them and prepare them for a fruitful education. And in our experience working in this sector, we see a clear divide between you know, sort of a private sector market-based approach failing and needing more of a more government approach. We're seeing that right now childcare is wildly inexpensive. Childcare inaccessible and expensive. It is extremely, you know, you have some parents paying over $20,000 a year for childcare. That's more than, you know, a a college education for some youth, and there's no way to make it less expensive in the private sector without paying the teachers less. But these early childhood educators, they're barely making enough money as it is, and it's a very clear sector where there actually is no market-based solution. You need deep government investment, and we're calling on just raising taxes on the wealthy, on the billionaires throughout society, and deeply funding the sector to guarantee that childcare is free for all parents, and that also the workers are paid like the teachers they are.
Yeah, that's fair.
I love this. I have a question. It's in this vein, but it's going somewhere else. So I first of all, like, I just want to make sure that those who are tuning in know that, like, you have made yourself very accessible just to the community, period. Like, we are just meeting while Ken and Senator Jabari go back a while. We just met this summer when literally you were in the community, as you always are. And Stefanie from our church ran into you and invited you to come by the church, and you did. And so I'm just interested in how do you keep yourself connected to the Brooklyn community, especially in this kind of post-pandemic, but still in the pandemic era. We as a church have found our most impactful experiences with our community when we're outside of the four walls of our church. And as a result, a lot of our members now prefer to catch us virtually, which is like a shot to the heart of pastors who miss their people, but it's where the world is right now. But then there's also this like irreplaceable dimension of human connection, and what happened when we run into you on a Sunday and you're walking your dog and we share some laughs, and it turns into a real relationship. So I'm just curious, like, how do you balance I guess being on the ground in a time period where connectivity is strained in a very different way because of public health and different limitations around seeing people and connecting people?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough balance, Pastor, and I would definitely say we're constantly evolving our strategy. Since the onset of the pandemic, people, the new normal now is that physical events do not get the same turnout, that they did beforehand, and that's for very good reasons. People are concerned for their own health and safety, or they would just prefer to tune in virtually, or they're busy. And, they don't have time to make it over there physically, but they would like to participate in some capacity. So we try and do things hybrid whenever we can. We just did, going back to childcare, we just did a sort of summit on childcare organizing, and it was a mixture of virtual and in person so that people had options of doing that. But then in addition to that, there's just the types of ways that we are engaging in the community. When we are finding things in person to get that human connection, there's the fun things. There's the block parties. There's the fun events. But then there's also the times when people in the district are in struggle and they're really scared or they're frustrated, and we uplift those too. So, for example, we've had a community, a block, and the surrounding areas in Bed-Stuy that were very frustrated over the demolition of a historic building called the Jacob Dangler Mansion in Bed-Stuy, and we took this as an opportunity to help people organize, against this demolition, and now against the developer who did the demolition. But even that organizing against a common problem is a sense of community building, and it might not necessarily be around something that is uplifting, but it is about something that brings people together because it helps them recognize that, again, their problem is not their own. Similar things to people that are experiencing rent increases. It's very easy to say, oh no, my rent's going up, this is my problem. But when you have people, we have this new union called the Greenbrook Tenants Union that started when some of these people that were in a building run by Greenbrook Associates started talking to each other and saying, hey, is your rent going crazy too? Mine is too. And they realized that their landlord was, shooting up rents in excess of, 10, 20, up to 50% for some of them in their building and the other buildings that they owned. Yeah. And we've been helping organize with them too. So it's that mixture of things. It's the hybrid events. It's attending the fun events in person, and also, amplifying the sites of struggle throughout the district.
Yeah, I love it. And where do you see a place for community partners like churches? Like where, matter of fact, maybe I can make it a story experience. Saturday morning. You know, what are some stories of just like where you've seen either, you know, faith communities or just intentional communities that are looking to make sure that the conditions of our people are better than they are right now? Like what does that feel like when you feel like supported? Because of course, as a church, you know, we're always looking for ways to make sure that we are connected, but it's helpful to hear like what's helpful and what's not helpful.
Sure. I have spoken to some pastors in the district who, you know, they'll lead a faith walk throughout the district in response to gun violence. They will do shooting responses after gun violence, but then also, you know, one of them threw a concert in Herbert von King Park in Bed-Stuy, and it was an interfaith concert. You know, it was a Christian church partnering with you know, a Jewish temple. And it was singing joy on and on for hours in the park about bringing people together in community. So there were those. And then there are also, you know, I've spoken with some pastors who do work with the district attorney's office on diversion and helping out our youth who may be, you know, justice impacted or at the verge of, you know, having some sort of interaction with the justice system and helping divert them into more productive avenues.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Love that. One more question on our end, and then sitting at the edge of my seat with excitement for how Kim Miles and Stefanie Alleyne are going to lead us into the next part of our experience together. We are just a few days from an election on Tuesday, which will have a really big impact on statewide races in New York, as well as across the country. And knowing that what happens federally impacts, you know, what set of cards you have to work with as a state senator and that of your colleagues. How are you thinking about Tuesday and what the work is the day after Tuesday?
You know, I think for Tuesday, our success is not guaranteed, and we all need to step up. I do think we have a real opportunity to ensure that we put ourselves on a good foot forward for the next 2 years, next 4 years, especially in New York. You know, this gubernatorial election determines who is governor for the next 4 years. And what a lot of people don't realize about the structure of New York State government and the relationship between the governor and the legislature is that the governor's power is more lopsided and outsized in New York than in other states, especially around the control of New York State's budget. And we're talking about, you know, $200 billion of our labor that goes to everything from hospitals to schools to our, you know, to our energy system, to transportation, the MTA, all of that. And, you know, we have a race that has gotten tight between one person who we can work with in some capacity and another one, the Republican, who wants to shrink the budget and cut who knows what. So I'll be, you know, not only, you know, supporting Kathy Hochul, but I actually also, and, you know, I've been working with the Working Families Party, which is row D on your ballot, and working to convince people to vote for Kathy Hochul, but on the Working Families line, which is New York's progressive party, and through fusion voting, you know, vote for Kathy Hochul counts on the Democrat line or the Working Families line, but it also signals that, you know, you want the Democrats to do more, that you want them to actually fight for affordable housing for all, that you want them to fight for healthcare for all, publicly owned energy systems, and deeper investments in education.
Yeah,
that's incredibly helpful. Thanks so much for sharing a bit of what's at stake. Also sharing that there can be particularly impactful consequences if one gives attention to the lines one votes to. I appreciate you sharing that as well. And with that, we're going to transition to Ken and Stefanie. We're going to lead us through a interactive Q&A. Thanks so much for powerful insights you shared so far, Senator Brisport.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can jump in real quick because I just have two questions. I mean, number one, I'm a parent. I'm a parent of a 0.5-year-old. And when you talk about just the inaccessibility of childcare, I think you're saying a mouthful. And then me as a parent, I'm also thinking about how do I do my best to supplement my daughter's education, you know, at home? Like, what can I do? What can I read? What can I, like, what videos can we watch, and that type of thing? How can you, or how should we be encouraging more parents to support some of the policies that you're trying to push through? And can you tell me a little bit more about some of the policies that you're working toward and that you're backing that can support a parent like me?
Absolutely. So going back, this is giving a lot of me plug in my bill, the Universal Child Care Act, but I do think it's one of the best bills in New York right now. But basically, it would call for government investment of billions of extra dollars into the childcare sector to make childcare free for all parents, and helping pay the teachers a good salary, a parity with public school teachers, so that they are retained, and that they can give and provide a good quality early childhood education to our youth. Some of the most important years of a person's life in terms of their brain development and their education are 0 to 3. And so, when